baby, listen to me speak, yeah. No matter who, just say the word. Loving all that I see.
Pop, persuadable. What's going on, everybody? My bad, I'm a little tired. Feel like I just went on a date with Bill Cosby, and it was a bad joke. Just to let you all know, you guys can come onto my Twitch. That's where we play a lot of this gameplay, and I should be live streaming some Gravekeeper tonight. So let's talk about his skills. You can see his skills in the description, but I do have a translator. Yo, shout out to my translator. They don't want credit, but I love you. All right, digging for escape. Always bringing a shovel by his side upon using ability. He enters a state of burrowing underground. About burrowing state. When remaining in this state, the Gravedigger can move forward in the process of staying underground. This includes crossing through pallets that are already placed down, but due to fear of caving in, he is unable to cross through other normal obstacles. Due to lack of oxygen underground, every time he burrows underground, there will be a time limit. The Gravedigger can stop his burrowing state anytime when his ability is active. When he is in burrowing state, he is susceptible to attacks. If attacked during this state, he can parry the attack once and go back underground afterwards. During burrowing, if there is suitable space below him, the Gravedigger is able to dig downwards and... I lost my spot. Oh, and leave a hole in the initial position. You can tell reading's hard for me, apparently. This translates to claustrophobia. Due to his claustrophobia, the Gravedigger receives a 10% movement speed when in burrowing state. He gonna burrow that booty. Third pick, relief. The Gravedigger automatically ends burrowing state, and if he did not receive any attacks during this process, he will gain a 50% speed buff in rescuing teammates as he felt relieved under the contact of sunlight again. This effect will linger for 5 seconds. And last but not least, technology illiterate. Its direct translation is actually machinery blind. The Gravedigger lived alone in the graveyard for a long period of time, thus resulting into a lack of contact with living humans and technology. In addition, the Gravedigger suffers from a disease that affects his vision, which contributes to the reason why he is not good with technology. So, cipher machines, he does have a decode and debuff of 15%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so the test server was under maintenance, and so I had to stay up incredibly late. I still got to get to work. I have patients waiting for me today. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I've experimented with this character, and we're just going to let the gameplay kind of play itself. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can in regards to this player and some of the things that he can and can't do. In the future, I'll probably just live feed some of this. I may even do it tonight. You can catch me on Twitch. I'm really telling people about Twitch just because everyone keeps asking me where my live feeds are. And no matter how much I tell people it's on Twitch, I always get questions, well, where do you live feed? So, let's get into the Gravekeeper. What's going to be interesting with him is some of his abilities. So, we know that he has a 15% decode and debuff, right? So, when he uses his skill, all right, when he burrows in that ground, okay, he cannot go through objects other than a pallet for the most part. So regular objects like walls, any of that sort of thing, you can't go through. The only thing that you can go through is a downed pallet. That's about it. What's interesting about this burrow ability, though, okay, is that if you get hit while underground, you actually don't take any damage. You just pop up in the air. So that's going to allow a lot of interest and strategies for him. What's even more interesting is if he has the ability to body block, right? Think about that. You go in for a rescue, right? And then you go into the ground, and then you're trying to body block because you have a 10% movement speed bonus, which really means that you can continue doing your best to stay in front of that hunter, right? We all know that the hunter can run right past a normal character, but with that 10% movement speed bonus, that's going to be very difficult. And if you hit them while they're underground, it does no damage. It does no damage, you just pop right up. You should be able to be seen underground, though, with a peeper. I did experiment with that. What's also interesting is that if you burrow underground, all right, you have a 20-second cooldown, and if you're on a second floor, or if you're on a floor with a floor underneath it, you'll actually drop down, which is also very interesting. With the test server, we only had access to Arms Factory, but you got to ask yourself, what ability are you going to be able to do on Sacred Heart, where you can drop down from the hospital? What are you going to be able to do on Moonlit, right? Within the 2-story? What are you going to be able to do on Ever Sleep in Town? So the ability to just drop down is going to be very, very intriguing. Excuse me. So that's why I think that this character is pretty dope. I opened up a chest with him, was not able to pick up the item, but after I utilized 2 of my abilities, the burrow ability, I was able to pick up the elbow pads. So I'm not sure if that's a glitch. Remember, when it comes to beta version, we got to take everything with a grain of salt. This is the stuff that we're seeing, and that's about it. Right? We don't know if things are going to change or if things are not going to change. The question is it going to be worth it, all of this? A 15% decode and debuff, but he has a lot of potential. Imagine tight kiting like an animal, and then all of a sudden you decide to burrow down and try to transitional kite somewhere else. It kind of guarantees you the ability to keep moving forward. Now, I do know that a lot of people asked, does it build up your presence if you're a hunter? To my knowledge, yes, but I can't confirm it. I tried playing hunter, but unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to go against this character. But I would presume that because when you burrow underground and a hunter hits you, right, there's no damage done to you, you pop back up. But that hunter registers a full attack recovery animation, right? So there's a lot of kiting implications to that. Right? There's a lot of kiting implications to that, especially if you need to transfer to another spot, right? Well, if he hits you, yeah, you're going to pop up, but then the question is, well, what about Foggy Blade? Foggy Blade, you're not going to get damage, but they're going to be able to catch up to you, right? They're going to be able to catch up to you because they hit you with the Foggy Blade and they have no attack recovery. What about Gamekeeper's Hook? All right, so those are some questions and some things that we're going to have to consider, right? The next question is Anne's cat's going to be able to stun you while you're underground? We know that that happens with Explorer while he's minimized, so I'd presume yes, but we don't really know. Either way, even if it does, then Anne jumps on you and then boom, what? She hits you? She hits you and then she has attack recovery and you can just keep moving forward. So I feel like he's gonna be kind of a troll character, to be honest with you. But I mean, he looks pretty cool. There were a lot of misconceptions, people saying that you can go through all objects and all that stuff. That's totally not true. You can only go through a pallet. That's the only thing that you can actually go through in regards to his ability. Now, like I said, I do like the fact. Oh, how about we go back? Let me go back for a second. I can only make this video in one go, but so if you start your animation to dig yourself a hole and you get hit during that animation, it does get interrupted. So that's an important aspect as well. You should be aware of that. So you absolutely can get interrupted in that case. So what I'm interested in is what his save potential is actually going to be, right? His rescue potential. Because obviously he has a built-in skill where he can rescue faster, up to 50% faster, if he doesn't get injured when he's burrowing in that state. But then the question is I mean, I understand what that means. I understand how it works. But the question is would it be better to somehow try to rescue and then burrow afterwards and try to body block because you have that 10% movement speed while you're underground? So like there's this ability that's where I'm kind of caught off guard, because I understand that if you burrow, you're going to be able to rescue faster, which is a good thing. You can avoid the terror shock, right? So maybe that's a strategy that you can utilize. But even though he's a rescue character in regards to his rescue potential, okay, I'm not really sure if he's going to be like a main rescuer, though, right? He's not going to replace the mercenary. He's not going to replace the mechanic, right? Mechanic, by the way, guys, is a rescue character, all right? But it's going to be interesting how that skill is in there. The skill is in there to help him when he burrows and gets out. But in my mind, I'm like, what? Why would you do that? Well, why don't you try to rescue, dig yourself a hole and try to body block after that? It may work, it may not work. Obviously, with different hunters, they have different things, and a lot of hunters will try to prevent that as well. Now, earlier I said the test server only had Arms Factory. I should revise that and say that I'm the only, like, the matches that I got, the maps that I played last night was only Arms Factory. So, which is kind of a bummer because I really wanted to test this out on like, lakeside on the ship, moonlit. There's going to be a lot of potential there for sure. But if you guys have any questions, this is actually the part with the chest that I was talking about. So I tried to pick up an item and I couldn't pick it up. Now I don't have this recorded because I did stop the recording because I was lagging a little bit. You guys can see my ping up there. But when I did use my 2 abilities, like I said, when I came back to this area, I was able to pick up my elbow pads. So that was a pretty cool thing as well. So really what this character is going to do is he's going to be a kiting character for the most part. He has rescue potential, especially with the increase in rescue speed if you use his ability correctly. All right. But I think ultimately he's just going to be another kiting character. And what we're seeing now is, and this is something that I think needs to be said. The meta back in the day used to be decode as fast as possible, right? That was Season 1, Season 2, Season 3. That's why we were playing characters like Perfumer, Thief, Mechanic, Coordinator, Mercenary. That was the necessary evil. Well, at the time, actually, Mercenary in Season 1 wasn't really used at all because he didn't have the 3-hit ability, okay? So what I'm wondering now is when we watch high-tier gameplay, like really high-tier gameplay, especially on the Chinese server, what we're realizing is a lot of top players are slowing the game down, survivors, and they're taking characters who can kite. They're picking characters like Priestess and Forward and Mercenary, those sorts of characters who have decode debuffs because they know they can kite forever with them. And the reason being so is that in the early seasons, even if you were a top survivor, right, you still, couldn't kite like you can 10 seasons later, right? Everybody was learning the game. Even if you were a great kiter, you were still limited by what was relative around you and by the limited skill that you had, right, based on play and experience. But now a lot of people can kite really, really well. And so what they do is they double up on that and pick very, very good survivors. So there are many teams who are picking characters with decode debuffs, okay? And remember, I review 2 to 3 hours of footage every single night of high-tier gameplay separate of my own. So the question is, do you think he'll be utilized? Yes, of course, he has a 15% decode debuff, but if his kiting ability is absolutely amazing, wouldn't that be worth it? Wouldn't that be worth it for the player who feels like their kiting is not as good and wants to survive? And sure, 15% debuff, but they'll survive, right? What do you guys think? Ask your questions. I can test your mechanics out tonight. Have a good one, guys.